This conference will now be recorded.
Fiber combinedly from muscle fascicle. These are encircled by perimysium, and some muscle fascicle and again encircled by another constitutive layer. It is called epimysium. This epimysium covered the total biceps brachii. And with this biceps brachii muscle, there is presence of group of muscle fascicle, and in this muscle fascicle, there is presence of group of muscle fiber. Now, we discussed about muscle fiber. It's called myofibril too, and in this myofibril, there are some contractile units. Here, there is a diagram of contractile unit. It is called sarcomere. It starts from a jet line to another jet line. There is a zigzag red line. These are called jet lines. And in between the structures present in the jet line, these are combinedly called sarcomere. So sarcomere extends from one jet line to another jet line, and it is a single contractile unit of skeletal muscle. And it has two types of fibers. Here, red one is thin fiber, and blue one is thick fiber. Thin fiber is known as actin, and thick fiber is known as myosin. And there is some projection from the myosin. These are called myosin 8, which project towards the nervating actin. This is a simple things about the sarcomere. Let's see another picture of sarcomere. Here, presence of a zigzag black line and another zigzag black line. One black, this black line is called the jet line or jet disc, and another jet disc, and another jet disc. So, from this jet disc to next jet disc, it is a single sarcomere, and there is another one sarcomere, and there is another one sarcomere. This sarcomere contains thin filament. This thin filament is actin. It is attached with the jet disc or jet line. And there is another actin. It also connects with the another jet line. Due to this presence of thin filament and thick filament, and they're different in orientation, we see there are some darker area and there are some lighter area in this circle. So, as on its side of the jet line, there is presence only the thin filament. That means actin filament. So this area is lighter. And then after the lighter area, we see a darker area which are composed of thin actin filament and thick myosin filament. So this area is comparatively darker than this, the area both sides of the jet line. So when we see a skeletal muscle under microscope, we see there are some darker area, then lighter area, then again darker area, then again lighter area. These are responsible for the extraction of the skeletal muscles. This lighter area is called I band, and the darker area is called A band. So the sarcomere has lighter area and darker area. Lighter area formed from one sarcomere to another sarcomere, and center point of the sarcomere, center point of the lighter area, there is presence of a jet disk. Then the darker area. Dark area composed of myosin filament and actin filament. In this darker area, center point of dark area, there is a comparatively lighter area. This contains only the thick myosin filament. They have no actin filament. So this area has another name. This area has another name. It's called H zone. And in the H zone, there is another darker line. This is called the M line. So in the sarcomere, we found it is formed by, it extends from one jet disc to another jet disc. It is formed by two types of filament, thin filament and thick filament. The orientation, due to the orientation of thin and thick filament, there are some lighter area and there are some darker area. Lighter area is called I band, darker area is called A band. Within the A band, there is comparatively a lighter zone. This lighter zone is called H zone, and within the H zone, there is a darker line. This line is called M line. So these are all about the sarcomere. You should face in exam. Teacher may ask you in during exam, what is sarcomere? What do you mean by A band? What do you mean by I band? Also, you face in written exam, there may be a short note about sarcomere. Now, there is a histological slide of skeletal muscle. And this type of slide also present in our histology room. And you see in later class, when you present in your classroom, this type of slide we can see. And here, the skeletal muscle, these are formed by the muscle fiber. They have no branching. And this muscle fiber also contain peripherally located nucleus. And this nucleus is multiple, and this nucleus are multiple in number in a single muscle cell. And there is also presence of darker area and lighter area. This is a histological slide of the skeletal muscle. And if we read an exam, some points about the skeletal slide of skeletal muscle, you can write in this way. Muscle fibers are visible as tiny myofibril. Muscle fibers are arranged into fascicles surrounded by a connective tissue. Each muscle fiber is multinucleated and nucleus are situated peripherally. Each muscle fiber shows cross striation, which are visible as alternating dark A band and light I band. This is all about the slide of skeletal muscle. You can read in examination in different way. This you should remember, because in OSCE you should write this type of points. At least 3 or 4 points should be right within 2 minutes. Next slide. This is a slide of cardiac muscle. There are individual muscle fiber. This muscle fiber has some branching, and this muscle fiber has nucleus which are centrally placed, and each muscle fiber contains a single nucleus. And so in cardiac muscle, they have branching. In skeletal muscle, they have no branching. Cardiac muscle, there are presence of single nucleus which are centrally placed. In skeletal muscle, there are multiple nucleus which are peripherally present. এখন আমরা এটাকে পরীক্ষার সময় অস্পিতে লেখার সময় আমরা কিভাবে লিখতে পারি, কারণ অল্প সময়ের ভিতরে এটা প্রমাণ করতে হবে যে এই স্লাইডটা এই স্ট্রাকচার। সুতরাং তার পক্ষে কতগুলো পয়েন্ট আপনাদের লিখতে হবে। এটা আমি এক্সাম্পল হিসেবে দিচ্ছি, হুবহু এরকম লিখতে হবে এমন কোনো কথা নেই। আপনারা যদি নিজেদের মতন বানিয়ে অন্য কিছু লিখতে পারেন, অবশ্যই বাস্তবতার সাথে মিল রেখে, তাহলে আপনারা আপনাদের মতনও লিখতে পারবেন। Here there is cross striations which are less prominent than those of skeletal muscle fiber. The branching of muscle fiber are seen. Muscle fiber contains a single centrally located nucleus. Dark striated intercalated discs are seen in the muscle fibers. Now, there is comparison between three types of muscle fiber. Actually, written পরীক্ষায় আপনাদের এই কম্পারিজনটা আসতে পারে, সেখানে আপনাদের মার্কস থাকে 2 বা 3। সুতরাং এই মার্কসটা আপনারা লিখতে হবে হলো অনেকগুলো পয়েন্ট শর্টকাটে, যেন আপনি অনেক কিছু লিখে দিয়ে আসতে পারেন, মার্কসটা একটু ভালো ওঠে। আমি এক্সাম্পল হিসেবে দিয়েছি যে মাসকুলার টিস্যু সম্পর্কে যেটা আলোচনা করলাম, এই ডিফারেন্সটা যদি আমরা দেই, তার ভিতরে দেখবেন সব জিনিসগুলোই আছে। যেমন comparison of between muscle fiber, there is skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. The muscle cells, skeletal muscle large and elongated. In case of cardiac muscle, short and narrow. Smooth muscle short, elongated, and peaceful. Fibers, usually single, linear branch. These are single. Nucleus, multiple nucleus, peripherally present. Single nucleus, but centrally present. Smooth muscle also have single nucleus and centrally present. Striation, skeletal muscle, striation present, cardiac muscle, striation present, but smooth muscle, there is no striation. But in a skeletal muscle, the striation is much more than the cardiac muscle. Then cell to cell junction. There is no cell to cell junction. There are presence of cell to cell junction. These are called intercalated discs, and there are also presence of some gap junction in case of smooth muscle. Then T-tubules. Usually T-tubules, these are the tubules which contains calcium ion, and during the action potential within the skeletal or cardiac muscle, these T-tubules are open and calcium come out within the cell, and the contraction coupling mechanism is started within the skeletal muscle. And this T-tubule is usually present in a skeletal muscle at A and I junction, but in case of cardiac muscle, it is present at Z line. But in smooth muscle, there are no T-tubules. Cantilever components, that means covering of the skeletal muscle. There is presence of epimysium, perimysium, and endomysium, but in case of cardiac muscle, there is presence only endomysium. There is no perimysium or epimysium. In case of smooth muscle, presence of only endomysium. Location, muscles of skeleton and visceral striated muscles. Cardiac muscles, these are present in heart, and smooth muscles, these are present in vessels, organs, and viscera. Innervation, usually skeletal muscle voluntary innervated and voluntary, and cardiac muscle, these are involuntary, and smooth muscle are also involuntary. So voluntary contraction occur only in a skeletal muscle, not in cardiac or smooth muscle. The mitosis, that means cell division. In a skeletal muscle, there is no cell division, and cardiac muscle, no cell division, and smooth muscle, there is presence of cell division. So afterward, when any part of the cardiac muscle or any cardiac muscle fiber is damaged, it never regenerates. And that is true in case of a skeletal muscle too. So there is something about comparison between the three types of muscle fibers. Now we discuss another two slides. One is vagus, another is stomach. In previous class, I told you any tube within the body. It may be blood vessel, it may be respiratory tract, it may be gastrointestinal tract. Any tube of within the body, it has three layers. Innermost layer is mucosa, then submucosa, then muscular layer or muscular externa, then adventitia or cells. So, when we discuss about the